It's just hard. It is. It's difficult. Being a Christian, God is very good, right?
That's right.
And we try to trust him. But it can be hard to trust God.
It can, especially when there's a delay in the promise, and then we feel guilty because we feel like bad Christians when we have a hard time trusting God.
Right. Like, it's not like God's not trustworthy. It's just that we've got such a limited view of things, and then obstacles show up that were unexpected. It complicates things a lot.
It does. You're thinking about the story of Abraham and Sarah, though. If you're not familiar with it, God promised Abraham and Sarah a son very late in their life. And they were excited. They were overjoyed. They had no problem trusting God at first. And then year 1 went by.
Yep.
And then year 5 and 10, 15, 20 years go by before this promise is fulfilled, and they're struggling.
And at the beginning of these 20 years, just to be clear, Sarah was already way past childbirth.
Oh, yeah.
Then you fast forward 20 years. I mean, during this time, it's like, okay, how much time is going to go by? Has God forgotten his promise? Do we need to do something to make the promise happen?
And that is something Abraham and Sarah tried to do, and it ended up going very bad.
Abraham even comes to God and is like, listen, would you just go with the option that we came up with? Would you make that happen, please? And God, his response to that, we can see in Genesis 18:14. He says, is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son.
You know, time is one of the greatest threats to our trust in God. When God, gives you a promise and there's an amount of time, but time for God is different than us. And so when we've had to wait a long time for God, our tendency can be to take that step back and like, I don't know if I trust, I don't know if I believe, maybe I should do it on my own. But that's when we should be pressing into trusting God.
Absolutely. That's when you dive into your Bible. That's when you talk to your friends about the questions that you have. That's when you pull people around you and say, pray with me and pray for me. Don't let that belief pull you out. You can lean on the promises that God has given you because Genesis shows us that God is capable.